Good afternoon and welcome to UHD's Faculty and Staff Town Hall this afternoon as we talk about our preparations for COVID and restarting the fall semester. My name is Joanna Wolf. I'm the Vice President for Advancement and University Relations, and I'm pleased to be able to welcome you here today to learn more about how we are preparing campus for the return of classes in this fall semester. Just a little bit of background on how we're going to proceed this afternoon. In just a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tillis, our interim president, to give you greetings. Following that, Dr. Link will give a short presentation on our planning to date. And following that short presentation, we will have time for question and answers. There are over 600 individuals who have RSVP'd for this afternoon's town hall. And we have about 70 or 80 questions from that group that we have reviewed and consolidated and looked through. We'll also be taking questions through the Q&A on the Zoom feature today. So if you have questions as we go through, we will do our best to get through as many of those as possible and to address your questions today or certainly as a follow-up after the event. So with no further comments, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tillis now.
Thank you, Joanna, and good afternoon to you all. I want to take this time just to welcome you all to this town hall for faculty and staff hosted by myself and the Provost, and hope that you and your loved ones remain safe and healthy. I'd like to begin by thanking you for your hard work during the spring and summer and as you prepare for the fall. You have exercised compassion, understanding, and flexibility since the beginning of the pandemic, and I am certain that you will continue to do so during the fall semester, which will be like none other. You have received numerous emails communicating how we will begin the fall semester, and I am sure that there are questions that remain. On Monday, UHD will open in Step 1 Red, and will continue in Step 1 Red until September 8th, when we will shift to Step 2 Orange. All have received UHD's response matrix, which spells out what the color codes represent and what they mean for faculty, including professors of record, staff, students, and visitors. Provost Link will speak to this later on in the town hall. Additionally, staff received a letter from Vice President Montalbano stressing the importance of working with supervisors and communicating special work-related circumstances to supervisors. Vice President Montalbano is available during this town hall, and she also will be ready to answer some of the questions that you have regarding staff. It is important for you to know that our campus has been prepared to ensure a safe place to learn and work. Proper and recommended sanitation measures, as required by the Board of Regents adopted health and safety guidelines, have been instituted to minimize the potential of contraction on campus. As we want to minimize the threat of exposure on our campus, anyone coming to campus will be required to enter through specific entry points. We all know that the course of the pandemic is certainly unpredictable and that conditions are subject to change. Thus, we continue to encourage and are asking for collegial patience as we navigate this unprecedented time together. In closing, I would like to thank members of the executive leadership team, including deans and department chairs, the COVID-19 task force, faculty senate leadership, staff council leadership, and student government leadership for all of the effort and hard work in preparing for the fall semester. I definitely need to give a special thanks to Provost Link and his team of highly competent deans, vice presidents, and directors for their tireless efforts in preparing for the fall. So, Gator colleagues, let us approach the fall not forgetting the condition of our state, nation, and world in terms of the pandemic. Let us continue to exercise empathy, compassion, and flexibility as we prepare to reopen the campus and receive faculty, more staff, and students and visitors. During this town hall, I ask you to ask all the questions that you need to know and that you need to put out there in order to assure that you are comfortable with the responses that are being given and thus able to come back on campus slowly and surely. Step one, red, is our attempt to start the process of bringing faculty and staff back to campus, but also in a limited capacity in order to minimize as best as we can the threat of contraction on campus. Thus, we are here to respond to your questions and to provide you with more information. And on that note, I'd like to turn it over to Provost Link. Eric?
Thank you so much, President Tillis. Thank you for those remarks. And I want to extend on all of our behalf, personal thanks to you for your leadership. It is not easy to step into an interim presidency or any presidency for that matter, and particularly in the middle of a pandemic. But you have done so, and we have appreciated your collegiality, your leadership, your guidance in these difficult times. So thank you so much. To everyone out there, the disembodied voice that you are hearing is me, Eric Link. I'm the provost here at UHD. And I get the privilege of sharing just a few moments, a few slides related to how we have re-engineered our fall semester because of the pandemic. I want to thank everyone who is attending today's town hall. To be sure, we are talking through some significant issues this afternoon, but I would like to take just a moment at the beginning of my remarks to say welcome back to everyone. Yes, I wish we were together in person, but that will happen in due course. For now, let's enjoy the feeling of energy that we all have at the beginning of a new academic year. In just a few days, we'll be welcoming continuing students back to campus and welcoming a whole new class of incoming freshmen and transfer students. As of today, we are up in both headcount and SCHs, and we have what may be one of our most robust graduate student classes in a while starting out this fall. Our campus is growing, our programming is expanding, our retention rates and graduation rates are slowly rising, and we have worked together as a university community to navigate successfully a global pandemic. I'd like to single out the faculty for all of their efforts to provide top-notch educational experiences in online environments. And I'd like to single out the staff all across campus who, day in and day out, found a way to keep UHD going. Nobody said it would be easy, but the staff across campus exhibited real tenacity on a daily basis and kept us going during the most challenging times of the past 5 months. We've been there for each other and for our students, and I, for one, am looking forward to seeing what we can do for our students and our community this coming year. It's going to be a good year. Next. So I thought it might be useful to share a broad timeline, if for no other reason than to reminisce for a little bit over the past 5 months. Since moving everything online on March 23rd, we have also had a number of resources that have been developed for our faculty, all kinds of decisions that we have made as a community. We had 3 early response working groups, one in A&F, one in ESO, one in ASA. University Relations was involved in each of those groups, trying to piece together a plan that would be responsive to the health and safety of all of our stakeholders. We charged ultimately a COVID-19 response task force. We closed campus. We began an emergency leave program. We launched the Keep On Teaching webpage, the coronavirus webpage. We gave away hundreds of computers to students in need. We adopted SU options. We adopted interim test optional admissions policies. We had to unfortunately postpone commencement, but we held a virtual graduation celebration, which was outstanding. And we have been deploying all kinds of aid to our students through the CARES Act and other means. This has been an inclusive process, and I want to thank everyone who has worked hard to help create the fall plan. This 5-month timeline that you're seeing on the screen culminated with an announcement on August 7th that UHD will begin the fall semester in Step 1 Red through at least Labor Day. Yes, our world changed a little bit last week. We'll get to that in a later slide. Next. I wanted to take a moment just to personally thank yet again the COVID-19 Response Task Force for the countless hours of work that led us to this point. I'd also like to thank once again the staff and all of our offices who have been dedicated to maintaining our high level of student support and engagement, and who have supported the faculty and students in the transition to an online environment. Thanks to everyone involved. Next. The task force was given a charge to review the initial Safe Return to Campus plan and to develop a framework for a new plan with timelines and recommendations. The task force was a successful endeavor, and it continues to meet. We'll continue to provide recommendations to Cabinet to interface with emergency management, to review institutional strategies, and to inform our messaging. All these decisions are being shared and will continue to be shared promptly with the full UHD community. Next. The Response Task Force primary recommendation was that UHD adopt a framework similar to that of Harris County that identified UHD's response in phases with consequent triggers and actions for each phase. As President Tillis has announced in some recent communications, we are reminded that we are a state agency and are obliged to follow the directives and mandates of the governor's office. We're also part of a system, and as such, we are required to operate within the framework of system-level policy and direction. Within those boundaries, however, the conceptual framework presented to Cabinet by the task force was deemed valuable and has proven a useful instrument for operationalizing a full engagement plan that places a premium on safety and health and provides a high level of flexibility for individual staff and faculty to work with their unit managers on campus engagement plans at the local level that are responsive to individual need. Next. So when you go to the coronavirus website, what you will see is that there is a response matrix that is color-coded. You'll see this bar at the top. Here is just the visual to show you what the UHD response matrix looks like. You can find all of the details related to this response matrix at the uhd.edu coronavirus webpage. The operational levels of every division department on campus are outlined on the website. What you are seeing on this slide is just the top level descriptions of the 4 steps of the response matrix expressed as a function of the transmission of the virus. As noted, Cabinet accepted the conceptual framework offered by the task force, and since then, unit managers across campus have worked with staff to define staffing for each step or level. The intention behind building out the staffing grid based on the matrix, which was an exercise that we did over the past week and a half, was to gain a better understanding of the volume of people on campus under each level so that we can ensure proper social distancing can be practiced and to remain focused on the health and well-being of everyone on our campus. But it's worth noting that we're all learning and evolving on a daily basis, and we will continue to pivot left or right as conditions change or new information is received. Next slide, please. So were you to go to the threat matrix, you would see pages and pages of information like this. I recognize that this is not color-coded, it's all blue, but it's red, orange, yellow, green from left to right. And when you look at the row for class modalities, you would see these descriptions under each of those steps. Next slide, please. Similar, if you were to look at the row for staffing, again, you would see how staffing engagement on campus is being described on the response matrix under red, orange, yellow, and green. Next, please. We continue to adjust. The story of the past week has been the story of the red shift, if you will, in which UHD has been required by the Board of Regents and the University of Houston system to better align our red status with the governor's phase 3 opening plan, and to clarify that our operations can be informed by any number of factors, including Harris County officials, but that ultimately we are obliged as a state institution to conform to statewide expectations, as well as the directives of the Board of Regents and the Houston system. As a result of this charge, the response matrix has recently been modified to clarify these points. So the matrix that was published on Friday of this past week is revised to accommodate these language adjustments. Worth noting, however, is that we are not adopting any specific numbers, quotas, or percentages relative to what campus engagement in a modified red looks like. Next slide, please. To summarize very quickly some of the key elements related to our launch of the fall semester, we will start the semester in a modified Step 1 red status, as President Tillis indicated. That status will stay true through Labor Day. We anticipate moving to full orange on September 8th. After Thanksgiving, as has already been announced in some previous memos, we will conduct all classes online, including final exams. Nevertheless, no changes have been made to dates within the academic calendar, and finals will still be given during finals week according to the approved schedule. They will, of course, be online finals. Next slide. I'd like to end my remarks here this afternoon by returning to where we started, with enthusiasm for the days ahead and the sense of renewed energy that we all feel at the beginning of the new year. We're getting ready for a great year, and every day we take strides toward ensuring that. Many offices across campus have been organizing and engaging in activities to prepare our community for a safe, successful fall semester. I briefly want to share some of what has gone into prepping our community for a new kind of fall. There is a resource planning group led by Jerry Johnson, along with the online task force, who have pulled together a variety of trainings and best practices for our students and faculty to ensure that everyone has the tools needed to be successful in the classroom in this coming semester. Facilities management has worked diligently to create and post social distancing signs on desks, in elevators, and in hallways. Reminders have been posted throughout the campus about masks. Sanitizing wipe dispensers are mounted at the entrances of all classrooms and labs. And hand sanitizing stations have been placed in elevator lobbies and by building entrances. All classrooms and labs will be sanitized nightly. And outside of the health and safety, many of you have been working hard to engage the newest members of our Gator family. Last week, we welcomed 14 new faculty members with a new faculty orientation. In the coming days, we will have an event hosted by the Accelerated Transfer Academy of the first Transfer Student Experience Conference, a half-day virtual conference that brings together various student support offices across campus to welcome incoming transfer students to UHD. And the Office of Student Activities has been helping us by putting together a wide array of great, interesting, innovative, mostly virtual events for Welcome Week next week. I'm looking forward to some of those events myself. Next slide. To be sure, this has been a trying time for everyone, and I'm incredibly appreciative of the amazing support you have all shown one another, as well as the incredible dedication and commitment everyone has shown to our students and to the mission of the institution. I'm grateful to work with such a devoted group of people, and I want to thank you. And with that, I turn it back to Vice President Wolf.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, there is the option beneath to do at the bottom of your screen to ask questions through the Q&A. I have a number of questions here that were submitted when you registered for the event, And so I want to get started right away. I know we have quite a few people who are here available to answer those questions. So thank you, Provost Link, for that presentation. And let's start right in with some of these questions. You will notice that some of them are being answered online as we go so that we can cover as many of these as possible. So for Cynthia Vargas is here. And Cynthia, we have a question for you. If you could tell us, how will faculty, students, and staff be informed if a UHD community member with whom we've had contact tests positive? And where can we get updates on those numbers?
Hi, everybody. My name is Cynthia Vargas. I'm your emergency manager here on campus. UHD has a contact tracing program. My office is the one that manages that office. We currently have 25 active contact tracers that have actually been working throughout the summer. Whenever my office becomes aware that someone has tested positive and has exposed other members here on campus, we take a very direct approach and we make phone calls to each individual potentially exposed and have a conversation with them. The information is confidential. Any information that we gather is strictly for the purposes of contact tracing and for helping the person that is ill or the person that has been exposed through the process. As far as the numbers, you can go to the UHD COVID-19 website. When you're on a computer, there's a column on the left-hand side that will specifically say UHD COVID-19 cases, or you can just do a search on any one of our web pages. When you click on that link, it actually takes you to a page that will tell you exactly how many cases we have to date, how many have been on campus in the last few days, and how many folks have recovered. As far as this program works because our folks are actually communicating and are invested in each other's safety. So it's really incumbent on all of us. And I'm asking you for your cooperation that if you become ill, if you test positive, if you've been exposed at home or by somebody else, to please just file a report, go to the forms page and submit that so that we can go ahead and notify anybody else that may have become exposed.
Thank you, Cynthia. Can you also tell us, will those coming to campus have their temperature taken before entering the building?
That's a really good question. No, we actually will not. We're not undergoing that task. What we are going to implement, and that protocol should be coming out fairly soon, look for it in the next few days, is we're asking every employee and UHD community member to undergo a self-test before they even come. And one of the steps in that self-test is to take your temperature, in addition to reviewing any symptoms that you may have before even coming to campus. If you have that elevated temperature of 100 degrees, we're asking that you immediately notify your supervisor, your faculty member, to let them know that you will not be coming to campus that day.
Thank you. Yvonne Montalbano, we have a few questions here for you. Can you please share, how does each person responsible and accountable for determining individual employee schedules and return make their decision?
So the progression from step 1 red to step 4 green occurs gradually and incrementally as conditions surrounding COVID-19 improve. Each step brings increased in-person campus operations and interactions. Supervisors have been asked to balance the needs of their unit and the university to support and service our students with their staff personal circumstances when determining on-campus work schedules. As Dr. Tillis mentioned a minute ago, we have asked supervisors to be flexible, to be compassionate, to be understanding of our personal circumstances in making these arrangements.
Thank you. And can you also answer how will the university address the needs of UHD's diverse community, many of whom are caregivers for children or other family members?
So as I just mentioned, we have asked supervisors to be flexible, compassionate, and understanding. So employees, staff have been asked to work closely with their supervisor, explain to them any personal circumstances they may have, as for example, needing childcare arrangements or elder care, or having underlying health conditions where they feel they cannot work on campus and they want to continue working remotely. So those arrangements need to be made between the staff and the supervisor. However, as I have mentioned in previous emails that have been sent out, we also offer a number of workplace accommodation options. So if you have the need for a workplace accommodation, you can reach out to our benefits team at benefits@uhd.edu, and you will get a prompt response to your request.
Thank you. I believe I have this question for Tim Reichlich in Facilities Management. There's a concern about the elevators on campus and what the situation is with those elevators at this point in time and their preparedness for a return to campus.
We have just replaced our elevator maintenance contractor with a new one. We then went ahead and we had the state elevator inspector come through, inspect all our elevators. Every elevator that had any issues with it were repaired. This was all being done during the time that we were out. We also modernized elevator 8A and B. We replaced all the drive components, all the things that actually operate it, and a few other elevators that we had found had bad drives in them. We went ahead and replaced those. Then the elevators were inspected a second time to ensure that they operated correctly and meet all the requirements of code. The elevator maintenance company that we do have now has also added to their contract where if an elevator does fail, it is part of their contract to repair it.
Great, thank you. A couple of other questions for you, Tim. Could you please describe how the university handles distancing in open work areas in terms of accommodations that are made there?
In some of the larger work areas, such as computer labs, or even in the large area on the 7th floor of the academic building for IT, sneeze shields have been put in place to ensure a separation in case someone sneezes or coughs from getting it near you. Also, in open areas where there's a lot of furniture that people can move around or be in, we've placed signage in each one of them to ensure that you do know that there is a 6-foot separation that you should have between you and the other individual. Besides even in putting all the signs in, we've armed our entire housekeeping staff with a sanitizing agent that is approved by the CDC and the EPA for use against COVID-19. We apply this constantly throughout the day in the areas on all high-touch surfaces to ensure that it is sanitized at all times.
Great, thank you. And if staff or a department determines that there's another space in which they needed the sneeze guards, is there an option for them to make that request?
Yes, there is. We've generated about 300 sneeze guards of a variety of sizes throughout the university. We're in the process of building about 30 temporary ones for use in faculty offices, so they can temporarily put one up, use it for contact with the students, and then disassemble it and use it at a later time. We still are putting them up. We will continue to put them out through this entire time, wherever it's needed or people feel they need one.
Dr. Tillis, I'm going to ask you or perhaps Vice President Montalbano to answer this question. This has come in through the Q&A. We have been given instructions that we're opening in red through September 8th, but my supervisor has shared that we should plan to provide face-to-face student meetings at some frequency beginning August the 24th. This is also different from what was sent by ESO yesterday. Can someone clarify?
Okay, I'll start. I'll take a stab at it first. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do is to go to our color-coded response matrix in order to understand what the expectations are for interaction for the first 2 weeks, starting on Monday when we began to repopulate campus, and then what's the expectation until we shift to code orange on September the 8th. We are asking to minimize all face-to-face contact at any cost, such that we can minimize the potentiality of infection. There might be a case where there may be a face-to-face exception for a student with a faculty or a student with a staff member. But we are asking that those be, number one, communicated, and that we understand that that is not the expectation. So if at all, please minimize to almost zero during the first 2 weeks of opening any type of face-to-face interaction unless it is absolutely necessary, particularly as it relates to instruction. And so I'll let colleague Dr. Montalbano chime in.
So in the email that I sent yesterday to all staff, I explained that in step 1 red, only essential personnel are to be on campus. In addition, if there is a need to have certain employees, certain staff on campus to service the needs of students, then they can be working on campus during the current step red. Aside from that, nobody else should be on campus for the next 2 weeks.
Could you please clarify what determines severe and significant in the matrix, the red to orange?
Well, that would be a Cynthia question because those are the definitions from the CDC, is my understanding.
Cynthia?
Yes, I'm coming on. I'm looking at the question. Okay. Those definitions are based on the impact to the local healthcare community and the way that it impacts or places demands on the local health department. So as many of you know, we've been closely following our hospitalization rates and our positivity rates. Those determining factors are based on that. And there are some threshold numbers. So for instance, whenever you hear about the governor's 10% threshold number, that's the one that he uses to determine how severe something is in an area. The other part is the hospitalization rate, whether the number of folks in our hospitals or the percentage of folks in our hospitals exceeds the capacity of local healthcare to be able to address and assess their health. That varies significantly from community to community. So while Houston, which has a very robust system, is able to take on and manage a lot of very sick people, as you saw recently down in the valley, that was not the case, and they struggled even though the numbers were significantly smaller. So those numbers are really set by our officials, and here being a state agency, we listened closely to Dr. Hellerstadt, which is one of the state medical officials.
Thank you. Provost Link, a question here for you. If a course is currently scheduled face-to-face, is it mandatory that it go face-to-face by September 8th? That's the way that the UHD email read on last Friday. However, the email from the chancellor yesterday indicated that faculty can choose the modality of their choice and change their selection.
So this gets at the very heart of what we are trying to navigate over the past week or so, the information that we have received relative to the previous iteration of the response matrix versus the one that was published on Friday. In general, the re-engineered fall schedule that was put together in late June and early July and published on July 13th represents, to the best of our ability, an approximation of an orange step level. Right when that was originally put together, we were at about an 80-20 split in terms of having 80% of our instructional programming online and about 20% of our instructional programming in one of the other 3 modalities that we defined for campus. Since then, there has been some movement and some adjustments to that, and we are now somewhere closer to an 85-15 split, with 85% of our instructional programming online and the other 15% in the other 3 modalities. We cannot open the campus in a fully online position. That is one of the messages that we received last week. We have to be open for some limited instructional programming and some limited student auxiliary services. So we, last week, I met with the deans, met with the chairs. We discussed the revisions that we needed to do to the red column of the response matrix, and have been tabulating over the past few days information about what instructional and student support programming will have some face-to-face components on campus commencing on the 24th, with the idea that by the time we reached Labor Day, we would have adopted a fully online, a fully orange position. And again, that orange position is largely defined by the re-engineered fall schedule that was put in place on July 13th. So to the extent that is feasible, classes that are currently in PeopleSoft that students have registered for under the re-engineered fall schedule that have a face-to-face component, that component will be present and being operated on, all things being equal, commencing with the day after Labor Day. With some instructional programming, although as President Tillis said, a very limited amount available on campus in some defined capacity starting on the 24th. Individualized decisions about how a hybrid class, for instance, will be navigated for the first 2 weeks of the semester. Those are localized decisions, and we have asked faculty and chairs and deans to work on a case-by-case basis to try to make strategic decisions that are in the best interest of our students and that keep health and safety a top priority on campus. Given the messaging, the recent messaging, the past 72 hours or so, we want to emphasize yet again that the desire here is to be as flexible and compassionate as we can be as a campus, and to continue to prioritize the health and safety of our students, faculty, and our staff. So if there are need for individual negotiations, movement, shifts in modality, those can be accommodated at this time. That's what we know today.
Thank you. A follow-up question. So if classes, if during the course of the fall semester, if risk level is significantly reduced, will faculty be required to turn to face-to-face teaching?
It depends on whether their course was actually scheduled in a face-to-face modality or not. If we are, so let's say we are in October, and for whatever reason, we are able to shift with confidence into a yellow step. That does not mean the classes that are currently scheduled in PeopleSoft for online delivery will suddenly have to shift their modality and adopt some face-to-face components. That we would never do that in the middle of a semester. The only changes we would make mid-semester would be if conditions worsened. So if conditions were such that we had to move, and we've all been listening to what's been happening in North Carolina over the past 24 hours, if we got into a place where conditions were such that we needed to move our face-to-face instruction online, we would certainly move in that direction, whether it's this week, next week, mid-October, November, or whenever the situation may call for it. But in the middle of a semester, we would not go the other direction. So no instructor who is scheduled to teach an online course will be asked to move it into a face-to-face modality of any type in the middle of the semester.
Thank you. Let me ask a question of Vice President Montalbano. For the return to office, to the campus, are employees to follow the ESO letter from Vice President Montalbano or what their supervisor is requesting if there is discrepancy?
So I want to make clear that the email that I sent yesterday was based on what the supervisors had sent me. So in most cases, supervisors sent their work schedules for their staff to the department heads and the department heads to the VPs, and that's how I received them. So all I was doing was communicating that information to staff. I did not make any decisions for anybody. All I did was communicate. So your supervisor should not dictate, but should communicate to you what your work schedule is, whether you will continue to work remotely, or whether you need to work on campus when we transition to step orange. And if you're going to be working on campus, will it be full-time or on a rotating or hybrid schedule? So if you have a question, if the information you received from me seems to be inaccurate, doesn't seem to agree with what you and your supervisor discussed, take it up with your supervisor, talk to your supervisor, and whatever your supervisor and you agree to do, that's what you should follow.
If the state of Texas decides to rescind the mask mandate, will UHD do so immediately, even if Harris County public health authorities recommend against it?
Hi there, this is Cynthia again. The mask policy is actually coming from system, and we are all adhering to it. So unless we were to hear something different, we would continue to follow that policy.
Thank you. And there is a question here asking specifically, I believe that Dr. Tillis has addressed this, but what entity has indicated that we can now not open fully online?
Let's see, something's happening here. Okay, so I'll jump in and thank you for that question. The provost also basically responded to that question about entity. As a state-supported institution, and when Governor Abbott moved to his phase 3 of reopening the state, there were certain conditions relative to all of us that are state-supported institutions. And that was that we could not, because we are to be open for business, we could not have a 100% online instruction. And this is why we went with what the provost and what his team, and working with deans, working with vice presidents on the academic side of the house, came up with those 4 different modalities. And what we did was I reported out to the system that the University of Houston Downtown will open with those 4 modalities of instruction operative. We did not have to give the number of courses that are going to be quote unquote face-to-face. Neither do we have to report any of that. It's just that we need to open in a manner that's commensurate with the dictate of our governor relative to how phase 3 impacts academic institutions. And we have done that. And the provost has been very clear relative to what those 4 modalities are, relative to how our students will be instructed and how faculty will conduct that instruction.
Yvonne, there have been several questions. It seems to be a little bit of confusion around the difference between hybrid and rotating. Could you describe that a little more fully?
Sure. So rotating is when the staff is on campus less than 40 hours a week and is part of an ongoing rotating schedule with other staff in the department to provide office coverage. Hybrid is when the staff is working part of the time on campus, part of the time from home, but they have a fixed schedule. So let's say they're here on campus Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 to 4, not part of a rotating schedule with others in their department.
Thank you. Tim, I'm going to come back to you with a question about air quality. There have been a few questions asking about the university's air filtration system. Could you comment on that?
What we've actually gone ahead and done is the HVAC system, the air conditioning system, is completely controlled by an automation. We are starting up the outside air handlers, which bring fresh outside air into the building 1 hour before the actual air handlers and the system starts up. The system starts up actually 2 to 3 hours before the first person gets here. So before you walk into a classroom at 7 in the morning, we have been bringing filtered, air-conditioned, fresh air into the building, running it through the spaces and exhausting it out our exhaust system out of the building. At the end of the day, also, as a class comes offline, say the class ends at 4 o'clock, the air conditioning system automatically turns off that air conditioning. We continue bringing outside air into the spaces and around there. And then when the university shuts down, it shuts down, but we continue to bring outside air in to basically purge out the system for another hour after that. All the air filters are changed quarterly to ensure that everything is clean. And we just changed them about a week and a half ago before everyone's going to be here.
Thank you. Provost Link, could you comment on commencement plans for December?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. This is maybe not great news because we were very sad to see our spring commencement go. But currently we are trying to weigh whether there would be merit to trying to have a large in-person commencement at a time when we have already announced that after Thanksgiving, all instruction would take place remotely and that finals would take place remotely. The benefit that we are hoping to derive by not reintroducing the virus onto campus from students who have had multiple holiday visitors and guests and family members and so forth would presumably be undone were we to gather en masse in an arena to host a December commencement exercise. That's a long way of saying that it is unlikely that we will have an in-person commencement exercise at Minute Maid or NRG Stadium in December of this year. Just like our spring students, we will make sure that there is an opportunity for students who did not get the chance to physically walk the stage to do so at a later date. But we are unlikely to have an in-person commencement in December.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Cynthia and perhaps Yvonne to comment on this. Can we deny access to our office to a person, student, faculty, or staff that is not wearing a mask? And what is the process and support for doing that?
So I'll go ahead and jump in first. Absolutely. It is a requirement to wear a mask on campus unless you have some sort of very specific accommodation, and the folks that have received that accommodation will have a process that they'll initiate to let you know that they've received an accommodation. So for most of us, no, we were absolutely required to wear a mask. If someone is not, we have actually a face covering FAQ on our website, and I really would like you all to go there and read that. It has a ton of information to very, very specific scenarios. I'll touch on it briefly because I could actually talk face coverings for actually quite a while, for over an hour. I will tell you this, that yes, you will absolutely receive support. The first step would be to direct somebody or to ask somebody to place the mask back on. If that person refuses or just chooses not to, you can terminate your meeting with them. You don't have to continue doing that. And you can ask that person to leave. Now, if that person chooses to not leave, or if that person becomes disruptive, then you treat that the way you treat any other disciplinary issue on campus. The reason you would get other folks involved would be not because they're not wearing the mask at that point, but because they are being disruptive or because they are disrupting business processes. If someone were to elevate it to the point to where this is an aggressive confrontation, then of course you would want to get security involved. In most cases, we believe that you're going to be able to take care of this with just a gentle reminder and a redirection and asking the person to come either at another time or to go ahead and use their telecommuting or, I'm sorry, so I forgot the word, but to do a digital meeting instead of the direct face-to-face. There are any number of reasons why people are not wanting to use a mouse at that point. We recognize that some people may have some medical complications. In that case, we just direct them to a more appropriate avenue. Yvonne, do you want to jump in and add
Sure.
anything to that?
Sure. Yes, like Cynthia said, face coverings are required on campus for everybody. Faculty, staff, and students, visitors, contractors, anybody on campus must wear a face mask when in a public area. If you have your private office, your personal office, like me right now, I don't have to wear a face mask even though I'm on campus, but I'm in my own office and there's nobody else here. If you are in a meeting, like Cynthia mentioned, let's say you're meeting with a student. The student was wearing a face mask when he arrived. He removes the face mask. You can ask the student to place the face mask back on. If the student refuses, you can end the appointment with the student and you can ask the student to leave, and he or she can reschedule the appointment once they're willing to wear a mask when meeting with you. Otherwise, like Cynthia suggested, you can schedule a Zoom meeting with them. For employees, if there is a staff person in your department that chooses not to wear a face mask in a public area, you can refer them to their supervisor. The supervisor would counsel them and ask them to wear a face mask, a face covering. If they refuse, then that would be considered insubordination, and that is subject to disciplinary action. For students, they can be referred to the Dean of Students' office, and for staff, they can be referred to my office. We can work with them, and for faculty, they should be referred to the Provost office. But again, face masks are required at the system level. They're required here at UHD, and failure to comply with that directive would be subject to disciplinary action.
Yvonne, let me just follow up with a different question. Are student workers allowed to work on campus if both the supervisor and the student are in agreement?
Yes, they are allowed to work on campus if they're considered essential student workers. As I mentioned before, during step 1 red, only essential personnel can be on campus. So if they're part of that essential group of employees, they can work on campus. When we transition to step 2 orange, again, if they're considered essential student workers, they can be on campus as well.
Provost, could you please address the Northwest distance education class and the distance education classrooms? I believe there have been several questions about that.
Well, I can start us off and then maybe pass it over to Dr. Musali for any additional details. The challenge for all of our distance sites is that they are not only following our response matrix and have to be responsive to all UH and UH system policies and regulations, but we also have to navigate local Lone Star restrictions and policies as well. So all of our students at those campuses are required to abide by University of Houston downtown policies and regulations regarding safety and health and so forth, mask wearing, all those things. They also have to accommodate local protocols as well. So there are, in some cases, going to be some restrictions to being physically on campus that might be true here that are not true at Lone Star, and vice versa, depending on how things evolve over the coming weeks. With that, Dr. Musali, do you have any additional thoughts about Northwest in particular? You are muted.
I am muted. Okay, sorry. We are trying to clarify the situation, so we hope to have information tomorrow to confirm access to Northwest and Kingwood. We anticipate actually that we will likely have access, but people going out there would need to be aware that parking may be a little bit different. Also, we need to be sure that people understand that Lone Star, for anybody coming to campus right now, is requiring a temperature check. They have a system set up at every entry point. And there is a form that folks have to fill out every day that they come to campus. You can print it in advance, but you need to fill it out and have it ready when you get there. So that's some information that we did send out to faculty. As soon as we have clarification on the access points, we will notify all of the faculty and students who will be at Northwest. We're still trying to confirm which classes will be starting on Monday out there, if any. And then we'll definitely follow up before the day after Labor Day to make sure that folks know what the access is. Right now, Lone Star, as you may have heard, is fully online until the 8th, but after that, we understand that their campuses will be functional as well. So we'll be messaging as best we can on that, but we are aware of it and we hope to have something tomorrow.
I believe this question for Tim, or perhaps Provost would want to step in as well. Can you describe how the COVID capacity of classrooms has been determined?
What we actually did was we looked at what the CDC guidelines were for social distancing. We then went into all 87 classrooms locally here that are being used, and we marked 6 feet from the center of the chair where a person would be sitting in a circle. Every chair that came within that arc were placed a placard saying, you can't sit here because of social distancing. We did that to all the rooms, then installed that to ensure that they would keep their 6 feet apart. In some cases, there was too much furniture in the space, so we removed furniture so that we can meet the need for the size of the classroom, but still keep the 6-foot social distancing.
Provost, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, nothing to add to that. Thank you, Tim.
Okay. Cynthia, could you please address this one? What is the plan if there is a COVID outbreak at UHD?
There we go. Not all outbreaks are created equally, to be honest with you. Definition of an outbreak for the state of Texas is at least 5 interrelated positive cases. That could very easily happen within an office unit or within a department. So it could actually be isolated. And so the answer to that question is, it depends. It depends. We will elevate the university's actions appropriately to mitigate and deal with that threat. So if we were in a situation where it is a small localized outbreak, that would warrant a specific type of reaction. If we were in a University of North Carolina situation, then that would warrant additional discussions. And yes, to answer your questions, there are various level plans for the various levels of outbreaks. However, to reach the level of something as vast as we're seeing in some other parts of the country involves notification of various level government officials and health officials. Those networks are in place, and so given the need, we would launch those plans.
Thank you. Provost Link, a question for you. Is there a policy or procedure that will be put into place to provide more leniency for students, knowing that many of them are dealing with children or elderly parents who are at home during this pandemic?
I don't know if there will be anything like an official policy statement on this, but what I can say is that we have tried to be as consistent as we've been able over the past 5 months to make sure that we all are responsive to our students, and that we are, some of the words that we have been highlighting today continue to be true right now as they were a month ago, 3 months ago, 5 months ago when this started. We need to have some grace, need to be generous and flexible for all members of the UHD community, and certainly for our students who are juggling all kinds of life obligations while they're trying to get their degree and pursue their dreams and goals. So while there may not be an official policy per se, there's been consistent messaging, and we will remain consistent on this, that our hope is that individual faculty will get to know their students, communicate with their students, be responsive to their students, not only educational needs, but to the needs of the time that we're in, and work with them in a flexible way that extends grace to each of them, because we're all just trying to figure out how to navigate a very new situation. And with faculty, staff, and students who have all kinds of considerations, healthcare and others, childcare related to the pandemic, we want to be responsive to all of those situations. So I encourage everyone to reach out to your students, talk to them, be responsive to their questions, be in touch with them, and communicate to them ways that they can be successful in your class.
Thank you. Cynthia, could you comment on whether or not there will be COVID testing on campus?
UHD is not offering COVID testing on campus at this point. However, given the robust testing capacity for our region, we strongly encourage everyone to take advantage of that. As it is right now, we have far more testing capacity in our region than we have individuals seeking testing. So the lines have gotten extremely short. And there are, if you look on the Department of State Health website, or simply just Google testing COVID Greater Houston region, you will see an interactive map that will provide you with, at this point, it seems like thousands of places to go get tested.
I believe that's on our webpage as well. Isn't that right? A link to that?
I believe so, but if it's not there, I'll make sure it's there by the end
I
of the
think it is. Okay. We're going to take a couple more questions. I know it's just a little bit after 4. I do want to remind you that we had many more questions than we're able to answer today, but we will be working to reach out to individuals who've submitted questions and address those to you, or also we'll be able to put some up on the FAQ. So let me take a couple more questions here. Let's see. Are classrooms at UHD going to be set up to record lectures for students who are unable to attend class? Provost Link.
Yeah, I'll start off, but I might actually hand the baton to Hossein in a moment to talk about certain specifications in our rooms. We will not have the ability in every classroom to record lectures. We don't have that capacity. We don't have the necessary equipment to do that, nor do we have, I think, the staffing to be able to accommodate that for all 87 classrooms that will be online, that students will engage with in some form over the course of the semester. Having said that, we have, of course, as many of you know, installed a great deal of new equipment to accommodate the remote interactive classrooms on campus. There are a number of those classrooms, and we hope to install a few more of them before the spring semester begins. They may have the ability to record, but I can't swear to that, so I'm going to ask Hossein to step in here.
Those rooms do have the capabilities, and as well as a few others, but as the Provost mentioned, we don't have that capacity in all of our close to 200 classrooms. So the 10 or so rooms that have the capacities, of course, that will be up to the instructor, whether the faculty, whether they choose to record the classes as needed.
Thank you. It seems that there's still some questions about the President Tillis's email last week and the Chancellor's email regarding the degree of choice professors have as to the modality of their course. Would someone like to make an attempt at answering that?
Yes, Joanna, I'll jump in. I want to say that from the meeting with the Provost, with all of the system presidents, as well as with faculty senate leadership, her message to us and what I think she was trying to convey in that email that was sent out is for us to be extremely flexible in working with faculty colleagues relative to the modalities that we're offering on our campus. As the provost mentioned, that it is a unit level discussion, and what we are encouraging is, and I will repeat what he stated because I 100% am in agreement with him, that colleagues at the departmental level should work with each other. Department chairs should work with faculty colleagues, particularly those who may want to switch relative to the modalities. And we're for the most part talking about those who are in PeopleSoft scheduled to teach face-to-face courses. So again, for me, her message meant that we are to be flexible, and we on this campus as well, we have been, for the most part, working within that frame of being flexible, being compassionate, being understanding with faculty and staff and students as it regards to reopening the campus on Monday. Provost Link, do you have anything else to add to that?
I don't have anything really to add. There are limitations to what our technology will provide. So while in the framework that has been articulated by President Tillis and that I've spoken about as well during the course of the past hour, there are certain things that may be possible on one system campus, UH or Clear Lake, that may not be possible for us. Case in point, we were just talking about whether our classrooms had the ability universally to record lectures. We don't have that capacity at UHD right now and will not by Monday when classes begin. So there are certain baked-in limitations to the modality options we can provide to students. But within the framework of those limitations, we do hope that at the unit level, faculty and chairs and deans will work with each other and with students to provide an array of modalities that will help advance the learning and the programming of our institution in a successful way this fall.
Yvonne, let me ask you about, will emergency leave be extended beyond August 31st? And if someone becomes ill with COVID or the family member does, will they need to use sick days in order to take that time off?
So, and this will be communicated to the university community later in the week, but emergency leave will not be extended beyond August 31st. We're the only university within the University of Houston system that has awarded emergency leave for the past 5 or so months. And emergency leave was only for employees who could not work remotely so that they could continue getting a paycheck. It's not for employees that may have tested positive with COVID. If an employee tests positive with COVID, they have to use their accrued sick leave.
Thank you. And a final question, will the university be providing PPE to students and faculty coming on campus next week and throughout the fall semester, and also the status of face shields?
So I will respond to whether or not we'll be issuing PPEs. We have what we call safety bags for employees. So faculty coming to campus, my understanding is that the Office of Administration and Finance will be delivering those safety bags to the faculty members' office or department for them to pick them up there. For staff, they have been delivered to their offices. And for students, we will issue face masks at each entrance. I'm not sure about face shields. That would be an Eric question, because face shields are only for faculty, if I'm correct.
So I know that David placed an order for a shipment of face shields, but I actually don't know where they are. They could be sitting in the mailroom right now. David, are you there?
I'm here, yes. I saw some emails. I'm just coming off vacation, but I did see some emails between Dr. Johnson and Stephanie in my office, and it seemed like they were on the same page. You know, whatever was needed, whatever Dr. Johnson said was required would be provided. And it didn't look like there was going to be any issues there.
Great.
Okay, I think that takes us about as far as we can go with the questions today. I know there were quite a few that we were not able to answer during the past hour, but I know we also got through quite a few of them. Dr. Tillis, I'm going to turn it to you and ask if you'd like to give a few final comments.
I would. Thank you so much for all of, am I there yet? There we go. I would. Thank you, Joanne, and thanks to all of you who have chimed in for this town hall. I read as well that one of the comments in the Q&A was that you're counting on us, and we want you to count on us. We want you to know that we are doing the very best that we can to make sure that when you come onto this campus, that you're coming onto a campus that has been prepared and that we are ready to receive you. You know, I'm excited about the fall. I'm excited about the limited number of students, because when students are on campus, they bring a certain level of excitement to campus and a certain sense of normalcy. Even though there are going to be few students on campus, few faculty members, it's at least moving us in the direction of where we should be in the fall. So again, I want to thank all of you for joining us for this town hall. As Joanna Wolf said, we will get back to those questions that have not been answered. And we just realize and want everyone to realize that we can only get through this together. And that's the only way that we're going to create an environment that is going to be conducive to learning, conducive to safety, and also mitigating health risks on the campus of the University of Houston downtown. So thanks to all of my colleagues who are on this call for responding to those questions in a way that hopefully faculty and staff now have a level of comfortability about some of the issues that they did not have comfortability about before we started this town hall, and continue to be Gator resilient as we move forward and prepare for receiving our students on Monday.
Thank you, everyone. And tomorrow evening, there will be a town hall for our students as well, which I know a number of us are participating in. So we hope to be able to share some of this information with them as well. Thanks very much and have a great day.
Thank you.